Hi, I'm Sarah and I'm the maker behind Hole Punching. It is a fairly grey and cold day here in the Lake District today, so it's the perfect day to do some crafting. So my intention going forward, if you've been following me for a little while, you'll see that I have got some videos on here, but they're all quite old now and out of date. So I'm going to be updating my YouTube channel with some tutorials and how-to guides, all based around punch needle. And if you're new to punch needle, it is a modern take on a very traditional craft that used to be centred around making rugs. But now you can use it for a whole range of different applications. You can do wall hanging hoops, you can do cushions, and of course you can still do the more traditional thing of making rugs. But today we are going to look at the Daisy punch needle and tufting kit that I have made in collaboration with my sister, Sara Moore, who is a freelance print designer. So she has designed a range of 4 different punch needle designs that I have made into kits, and they are beautiful. 2 of them are just straight up punch needle, so they're perfect for beginners, and then the other 2 are punch needle and tufting, which is an amazing craft, and it just really transforms the punch needle loops. So today we're going to be having a look at this Daisies kit. So we're going to be working on a 5-inch hoop, and I'm going to be showing you how to stretch the fabric in the hoop, secure it in the hoop so it's nice and tight, and then we're going to be threading the punch needle. We're going to create all of these flat stitches that you can see on the front in the kind of lilac-y purple colour, and then we're going to be turning it over and punching from behind, and then that's going to create loops on the front which we're then going to tuft. And when you tuft them, it kind of releases this gorgeous velvety texture, and the colours just really come alive. So that's what we're going to be making today. So alongside the kit you're going to need a marker pen, some scissors and some strong glue, and I'd probably recommend a hot drink as well. Okay, so let's get going. Okay, so before we take a look at the kit, let's have a little bit of a closer look at the hoop that we're going to be making today. So I've put this down as a kit for intermediates because it includes this bit of tufting, but to be honest, if you're a confident beginner, then you're probably going to be okay. So let's have a little look. So this is the front of our finished hoop, and we've got these flat stitches on the background, and then we've got these lovely raised tufted sections here. Okay, so let's have a look at the kit then. So here is your Daisies punch needle kit, and this is the box that it will come in. And so if we have a look on the back, it's going to tell you what's inside, so you can check that everything's there. And then at here we've got, in addition, some extra materials are required. So we need a marker pen or pencil, some strong glue and a pair of scissors. So if I show you the materials that I use. So I've got a range of different scissors here. I've got some paper scissors for cutting out your design. I've got some fabric scissors for cutting your fabric. I've got snips just for snipping the yarn as I go along. And then for tufting, I use these angled embroidery scissors just because I find that I can get into the loops a little bit easier, but normal embroidery scissors or fabric scissors, if you've got them, will be absolutely fine as well. We've got a marker pen for drawing your design on. You don't need to worry about using a marker pen on your fabric. It might seem a little bit scary, but as you're going to be covering it all in the loops, you're not going to see any of the pen anyway. I've got a tape measure just in case, probably not going to need it. And then the glue, which is one of the first things we're going to use. So we're going to use this to secure our fabric in the hoop, make sure that the fabric stays nice and taut because that will make the punching easier. So there isn't really any particular reason why I've got this wood adhesive. It's just because this is the first one that we had in the house when I started punching, well, in the garage. So I've carried on using this because it's really strong and I know it works. I have tried some textile glue, but it doesn't seem to fix the hoop as well to the fabric, and I want it to stay nice and taut. So I'm going to use this wood adhesive. Just to experiment with what you've got. Just going to use this little dish to put my glue into, and then I like to apply my glue just with a bit of a scrap of fabric, but you could use a paintbrush, or your glue might come with an applicator. So just kind of see what you've got and have a go. So we'll move this all out the way then. Let's see what we've got inside our kit. So it's 100% recyclable. You can reuse the box, the sleeves paper, so that can go in your recycling bin. Okay, so we'll remove the sleeve, and then inside the box. So we've got our instruction booklet here. So this is going to take you through everything we're going to do in this video, from preparing the hoop. We've got tracing our design on, threading the needle, kind of the basics of punch needle. And then we've got some specific instructions here. So this says Daisy in June. So there is another kit in this collaboration that is called the June kit, and that also includes punch needle and tufting. So this is going to talk to you about the punch needle part and also the tufting part. So we're going to have a little look at this as we go, just to make sure that we're following everything that's in here so that I'm not missing anything out. So in our box then, let's move that out of the way. We've got our hole punching project bag, which is great for keeping all your materials in and very handy. So in our bag then, let's get that out of the way for now. So we have got our yarn, we've got our punch needle, we've got our template, we've got our fabric, and we've got our hoop. So we just have a quick look in the little booklet. I'm pretty sure we're going to be preparing our hoop first. So we're going to be looking at instructions 1, 2, 4 right now. So we're going to put our fabric into our hoop and secure it. So the fabric that we're working on is 100% linen, and it's not a tightly woven fabric and not as loosely woven as monk's cloth, but it has got a little bit of movement to it, and that's why it's fraying there. But it's nice and sturdy, and it's suitable for the width of this punch needle. So let's undo our hoop. And this is where a little bit of strength is sometimes necessary. So we're going to separating the outer ring from the inner ring. So I'm just holding this nut here and unscrewing it. Okay, let's slide that out. So we're going to put the inner ring down, and we're going to place the fabric over the top. Just going to undo that a little bit more. And so we're pushing the outer ring on. And so if I was trying to punch on that now, it's too baggy. It would be slipping all the time, and it's going to make it pretty hard work. So what we're going to do is we're going to start to tighten our hoop. So I'm holding onto the nut here and tightening this over here. Okay, and then we want to start to slowly just work our way around the hoop. And what I should have said as well is you want to try and get the hoop in the middle of the fabric. And we're going to go all the way around. Okay. Now, might seem a little bit arduous, but preparation is key, and if you prepare well, then you're going to have a better experience when you're punching. So it still feels a little bit loose to me, so I'm going to tighten it up a bit more. And this is where I should have got myself a little screwdriver, just to really tighten that up. We're going to go around again. We're going to get it as tight as we can. So it's up to you how long you do this bit for. I would recommend spending a bit of time to get this as tight as you possibly can, because so it's just going to make it easier for punching. Now, some people might try and punch into this straight away, but if I try to punch into this, the fabric's going to slip and it's not going to stay in place. So what we want to do is we want to secure this in the hoop. So what I'm essentially going to be doing is folding this over and gluing it onto this inside ring here. So we obviously don't want to fold in this really large piece of material, so we're going to give it a little trim. So I reckon we want to fold that in about 1/2 centimetre, so that's what we want to have left. So I'm going to trim this down, and I'll go a little bit more than I probably need to start with, because you can always trim a little bit more off. So we're going all the way round. Okay, and then we're going to be folding it over and then securing it on the inside of the hoop. So I'm just going to get a little bit of glue here, squeeze a little blob out. And then, as I said, I quite like to apply it just with a little scrap of fabric, but if you want to use a paintbrush or if it comes with an applicator, just do it in the way that you feel more comfortable with. The aim is to try not to get any on this part of the fabric, because this is the bit that we are going to be punching on. So I'm just going to get a little bit on there, and I'm going to glue on the inside here. I'm just going to get that on and go all the way around. Okay, so now I'm just going to go around and press this little hem of fabric onto the inner ring where I've glued. You might need to go around and do this a couple of times just to make sure that it stays down. So now then, we've got our edge all glued, we've pressed that down nice and firmly. So now I would be putting that one to one side and making sure that it's nice and dry. I tend to leave mine overnight, but if you just follow the guidance on the glue, it might just be that it takes a couple of hours to set or something. So, in true Blue Peter style, here's one that I prepared earlier. So my fabric is nice and taut and it's secured safely in the hoop there. So the next thing we need to do is to transfer our design on. So we're going to cut this out. You don't need to worry about being too neat cutting this out because we're just going to be tracing it on. So I'm just going to go round. Okay, so you can see that that's just a little bit tight, so we're just going to cut a little bit more off around that bottom edge. But you don't need to worry because this is the background. I'm not cutting into any of the design here. Okay. Okay, hopefully you can see that with a little bit of light behind, you can see your design. So you could use a light box if you wanted to, or you can just hold it up to the window. Then with our marker pen, we're going to trace the design on. So this is a little bit easier to do if you're holding it straight up to the window so you can rest against it. We're just going to go over all of the lines with the Sharpie. Don't worry if you don't get it exactly in the middle, because you can always move your hoop once you've finished to get the bracket in the centre. And even on this pretty dark day, it's still enough light to see through this because it's a nice loosely woven fabric. If you're using a bit more of a dense fabric, you might want to use a light box or be holding it directly up to the window. Okay. And so once we've traced this onto the front, because we're going to be punching the design from both sides, we're going to need to trace some of it onto the back. So we'll do this side first. There we go, making sure we haven't missed anything. We'll take the design off. Now, the bits that we're going to be punching, if I put this down, we might be able to see a little bit easier. I pop that down in front. I know that we're going to be punching these 3 sections. What you might want to do is trace over this and put it behind again. But what we want to do is I just want to go over the 3 parts that are going to be tufted, because we're going to be working those from behind. Okay, so we've got our design drawn on now. So we are ready to start punching. Okay, so let's go back to our instructions. So we've done 1 through to 6. So now we're going to thread our punch needle, and then we're going to be having a little look. So in here, it advises that you punch the loops first. So we're going to work from the back of it first. So let's thread our needle up with our first colour. So I'm going to punch this part here first, which is in this chartreuse colour. So I'm going to thread my needle up with that colour first. Okay, so we're going to thread our punch needle first. So when your punch needle arrives in its box, it's going to have this wire threader through it already. And the threader is put into the needle the way that you're going to want to thread it. So we're going to take that out. So all the threader is really is a piece of jewellery beading wire. So if you ever lose it, they're very easily lost. Mine normally go down the side of the sofa. It's really easy just to make another one. So we've just got the piece of wire and it's folded at one end, which gives you this small loop, and then it's free at the other end. So we're going to get our chartreuse colour to start with. Okay, and we're going to thread our needle. So I'm taking the looped or the folded end of the threader. You could generally thread the punch needle in 2 steps or in 1 step. I like to do it in 1 step because it is more efficient. And we're going to go, so I'm going to take the loop end and I'm going to go into this small eye in the needle, and then I'm immediately going to turn it. Whoop. So we're going to go into the small eye in the needle, and then I'm going to turn it so that it goes down the channel in the needle and it comes out the bottom. And then when I'm at the bottom, I'm going to open up the loop. I'm going to put the end of the yarn through it. We're going to close the loop up and draw the yarn up and through and out the top of the needle. So when we get to the top, we're going to remove the threader and we're going to pull the yarn back down so that we've just got a small tail extending. Okay, so let's get tufting our first section. So we're doing this small part here that we're going to tuft. So we're going to punch from the reverse so that the loops end up on the front for us to then snip. So I'm going to follow the line and we're going to punch the outline first. And what we like to do is punch the outline first because it's going to give a little bit of definition to your shape. So I'm just going to stop there and I'm going to pull the tail through from that first stitch because we want all of our tails to end up on the loop side, and we're having the loop side on the front for this part of the design. So we're going to go all the way around the outline. And I'm punching all the way down as far as the needle will let me every time, and that is going to give us nice even sized loops on the front. So we can see that they're nice and even there. Now I'm going to snip my yarn off there so that I've done my outline, and then I'm going to start and spiral into the centre. You could carry on if you want to, but I don't want to jump over any loops. So I'm going to take my scissors and I'm going to snip the yarn there and pull my needle back through. Pull it back so I've got another little tail there. And then I'm going to fill in the centre, and I'm going to start down here and I'm going to punch as close as I can to the existing row of loops, because this section is going to be tufted and we want all of the loops to be nice and tightly packed in together. You'll see that when I bring my needle up, I'm only just letting it exit the fabric, moving it over and pushing it back down again. I'm spiraling my way all the way into the centre, making sure I've covered all of the fabric. And then we're going to snip that off, leave that tail on that side. And then with this tail, we're going to snip it off so it's a bit shorter, and then we're going to use our scissors to push that through. Okay, so we've got all of our tails on the front here. So now I'm just going to change colour to the mustard, and I'm going to punch these from behind for the other two tufted sections. Okay, so we've done our punching from behind now, so we've got all of our loops on the front ready to be tufted. So I'm just going to snip these tail ends off before we continue. So I'm just cutting them off in line with the loops. You don't need to worry about this too much because we're going to be cutting all of the loops anyway, just to get them out of the way while I'm punching. So next then we're going to stay on the front now, and we're going to punch all of the rest of the background in our flat stitches. So let's thread our needle back up. Okay, and I'm going to do the chartreuse section first. Now, sometimes this happens with the cotton yarn and it can kind of unravel a little bit and the ply goes a little bit funny, but there's plenty of extra yarn in the kit. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go back up to a bit where it looks fine, snip it off, and we'll just discard that bit. Okay. Lots of slack on the ball. And the same as before, we're going to start with the outline of the shape, and then when we get round to this loopy bit, we're just going to try and hold those stitches out the way so we can get right up to them. So let's start punching. I'm going to pull that little tail through to the back. Okay, so we're approaching the corner here. So I'm going to hold those loops out the way so that I can get nice and close in there. I'm going to go a bit slower around this corner. Okay, and then when we're approaching the end, we're going to make sure that our last stitch goes back into the hole that we first punched out of. And then we're going to snip that on the other side. Okay, I'm just going to pop that back through. So with our outline punch then, we're going to go in and we're going to fill in the section. So this is how we're going to do all of the background, so all of the different sections. We'll punch the outline and then we'll fill in. Now, because this is going to be the finished side, you want to make sure that you are getting your stitches nice and close together and covering all of the fabric. I like to follow my way around the outline and spiral my way into the centre because it gives the piece a nice bit of movement too. Okay, so with that part punched now, I'm just going to trim the tails off again because we want them to go through to the other side. And then I'm going to use the closed end of my scissors just to push that tail back through. Okay, so now you're going to finish punching the entire background of your piece, and then we'll come back and do the tufting. Okay, so now that we've filled in all of the background stitches and we have poked any of the tails through to the back, now all that is left is to tuft our loops. So essentially what we're going to be doing is cutting all of these loops and then sculpting them a little just to give them a bit of shape, just like on here. So let's start. So you can cut all of these loops individually if you want to, but I like to try and get a little bit of the bulk off by using a larger pair of scissors. So I'm just going to start by cutting the tops. Now you're going to end up with a fair amount of mess from this, but we're going to be using our vacuum cleaner just to get a bit of a tidy up as we go. So you can see that as I start to cut them, the colour of the yarn changes and it almost goes this really rich velvety colour. I'm just trying to really get the very tops off. Not being overly neat with it. I just want to get the bulk done. Okay, so if we concentrate on this little part first. So where it's lighter, then you can see that there's some of the loops that haven't managed to be cut. So I'm just going in and giving them a little snip. And that's where these angled scissors come in handy, because you can get right in there without having to hold your hand at a funny angle. So we'll just get in there and tuft the remaining loops. Okay, so at the moment we can see it doesn't really look like much of a shape, so we're going to give it a bit of a tidy. So I'm going to start trying to give it some shape. So I'm just holding these at a slight angle to the section that I'm cutting, and I'm basically just giving it a bit of a trim. It's up to you how much you do this, really. You can kind of do it as much or as little as you want to. But I want to try and give mine a bit more shape. So you can see it's kind of getting a little bit difficult now to tell where has been cut and where hasn't been cut. So I'm going to bring the vacuum cleaner in and just give it a little bit of a tidy up. Okay, so hopefully you can see that that is starting to kind of take shape a little bit now, and we can see what we've got left to trim. So I'm just going to get back in there and start sculpting again. As this is going to be a wall hanging, we don't need to worry about the fact that we're snipping these loops and whether they're going to stay in or not. The density of the stitches is what normally holds the loops in punch needle fabric, and obviously we've kind of removed a little bit of that stability by snipping them. But as it's going to be on a wall or a shelf, we don't need to worry about it getting too much wear, and it should be fine. Okay, I like how that one's looking, so now I'm just going to carry on and do the other two. Okay, and there we go. So our sections are all tufted, they're lovely and velvety. You've got that great texture there and that slightly domed shape. It's a great contrast against the flat stitches of the punch needle. So that's your hoop, and it is ready to be hung on a wall or propped on a shelf, and it's a really great introduction into how to tuft some of your punch needle loops. Okay, so I hope you've got on all right with your hoop. I love mine so much. I love this design, and the purple is just the most beautiful muted kind of lilac-y purple. So if you like this design, there is the other kind of punch needle and tufting design within the collaboration called Dunes. That's got some really lovely kind of coral and peach colours in there. And it's such a great way to learn how to do punch needle, but also try out the tufting. So that's going to be going pride of place on my shelf, I think. And so I'm planning to do more videos, hopefully once a fortnight. So if you'd like to find out about them, you just need to subscribe to the channel and then hit the bell icon, and then you'll get notified every time a new video comes online. So I'm planning to do some kind of basic punch needle videos around how to use each type, like different type of needle, the different types of stitches, fabric, yarn that you can use, hoops and frames, and then I'll also be doing some troubleshooting. But if you've got any questions at all, just drop them in the comments below and I'll try and help you. And I'll see you soon.